It's an integrated curriculum. Project-based learning, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with, so it's a driving question or challenge, the need to know, inquiry and innovation, 21st century skills. You know, I always tell my students, we're actually training you for jobs that we have no idea what they'll be. Because with the way things are changing and the technological advances, we have to give you the skills that we'll be able to transfer. And we don't know what your jobs necessarily will be or the careers that you will have the opportunity to have, but we have to be able to prepare you in the best possible way. And entrepreneurial skills is at the top of that list for 21st century skills, so that people can take kind of possession of their own future, if you will, and help to establish and create jobs for that new future. Student voice and choice, feedback and revision, and publicly presented product. And so that's what we hope to encourage students to be able to be comfortable and proud of what they create so that they can tell others about it. And you know as well as I do, communication skill is definitely something that needs to be emphasized today, because unfortunately we're very much tied to our phones and they don't have the opportunities to read the body language and to understand. And of course with entrepreneurship, you're pitching, you're telling people all about your product, and it's important to be able to do that with great confidence. And by talking to some of the teachers, that's one of the things that comes innately with this experience, is that students that traditionally might have been behind the scenes and wasn't taking an active role, all of a sudden they're proud, they take great interest, and there's great pride, and they're able to build confidence from that. Okay. The project itself, students select whatever business it is. At your school there may be something that's in the works that they become more involved in and maybe grow it and that sort of thing, but they may just select it from identifying a need in the community or in the school district itself. Goods or services, you'll hear the term nowadays products or services. In my day when I was being taught, products could be a good or a service, but today that's what they're using for goods, and you don't hear the word goods very much. So students may choose something tangible to sell or a service. And so that's perfectly all right. It depends on what's needed in your community, in your area, in your school. Determine business organization, sole proprietorship or partnership. I try to lean against corporations unless truly there's a reason. And the reason that I encourage that or discourage the corporations is because so many times you get too many members and then all members are not active. And that's not the purpose of this. I have seen so many students come out of their shell, students that didn't seem to fit in any other respect, because it's something they build and they create. And so if you want to reach the students that don't seem to be reached in other ways, entrepreneurship is a way to do it. And so that's why I caution against the corporations, unless truly there's a reason for that setup. If we want to get to the heart of it, it truly involves an attorney to set that up. And so I don't know if any of you need that, but hopefully not, because that's very complicated. And so that's why I try to stick to the sole proprietor or the partnership. So I mean, there's opportunities that come, but even our students, they've received money to start their business, but they're still in college and they don't pursue, and the money sits there sometimes. They changed some regulations in the state for the competitions I go to now it's more support. Rather than just handing students $40,000 and saying open it, but you truly have to go through phases before you get those pieces of money. Now it's a marketing firm has agreed to brand your product and work with you all year. A lawyer has agreed to give you his time to help you set up legally all year. So I think that those things will help more so than just cash. Because they need the advice, they need the support, and they need the help. But money, I don't think sometimes they know exactly what to do, even though they're educated. It's hard to take those steps. And so I think that changes in what I compete in called Idea State U, or the All-Tech competitions, I think some of those are moving towards doing some different things that will provide the infrastructure to help. And so, if there are things that you see while doing this that Morehead State University or KVEC could assist with, let us know that, because we don't know those things once you go back to your communities. Like the Shark Tank experience. If we can set up something via, the web access so that people don't have to travel to help your students, then we could do something like that. And it's getting so advanced with the technology capabilities, thank goodness, that we can do some of those things preliminarily before they come to the competition. We're going to talk about the dates and some things like that too that may make a difference. Okay, so moving on down, just to kind of tell you the difference between the middle school and high school. High school is based on whatever the lieutenant governors. It's thought that you would compete here with Morehead State University and KVECs in the high school level, then you'd be able to advance on to the lieutenant governors. So we have a competition set up similarly. You turn in a paper to us, we grade and score the paper. It's half the percent, half the total points, and then you do the presentation. That's the other half. We have a rubric with guidelines about what all needs to be included, and then that enables you to pretty much set yourself up very nicely for the lieutenant governors. There's not much difference. They look at a few things differently or call it something different, but we tried to model ours like that and tried to have the middle school feed into that language so that it would be an easy change over, an easy transition. So it says here, business plan is a data notebook for the middle school. It's a paper for the high school. Written documents to organize their business, and then presentation board. We actually have a trifold for the middle school, and for the high school, they actually present formally for so many minutes covering these areas, and then the judges know exactly what to do, and we'll get to that on in your documents. The project itself, oral presentations, student delivering pitches, prototype, if there is one required, marketing examples. So this is an example of what you might see at the middle school level. Business community partners, we encourage partnerships. Your students are going to need mentors. Your students are going to need real life people who have experienced this and are going to run into the same type of things. We've had shoplifters, we've had problems, we've had people who don't want to work, and students recognize they need to fire somebody. I mean, anything that happens in a business, it happens, and you experience it in these entrepreneurial competitions in the development of your business, because it just happens. Tommy and Susie are best friends, and they despise each other at the end because one of them's not pulling their weight and not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they don't know as much as they pretended to know, and it's very quickly recognized, is it not? I mean, those types of things come out. And again, it's to share, to mentor, to judge if needed, because those community members a lot of times will come in and try to help judge. If you need them on the middle school level, they have to have lots of people come in. On high school, not so much. You'll be working with a couple. We have taken everybody to competition on the high school level. Yours came, yours have come, and so yours have come. So, because there's usually 1, 2, or 3, in the middle school, it may be 60 students and 25, 30 different businesses, so we have to limit it at the regional competition. For the high school, I don't see that being an issue. If you're working with 1 or 2 businesses, we can bring both of them. I would say we could bring up to 3 for everybody to the high school, on the high school competition. Student capstone, students orally present the project. This young man, he was in our probably 2nd or 3rd year, impressed me because he said every day his dad would come home, and he was a welder, and he would get upset that the welding couldn't start precisely at the same point it ended. And he was very meticulous in his work, and he would just come home and he would be upset that you'd be off however much. And so his son took that upon himself, and he created a device that you could lay the welding device in so that it would start precisely at the same point that it stopped. And we did look into trying to help that young man patent, because we felt like that was something that any welder would be happy to have. And so these are some of the things that even on a middle school level, students are able to recognize larger problems. Creating the project, what do business and industry in my area want or need? What do you in your school, what do you in your community want or need? What's missing? We have gap analysis. I'm going to talk about some of the materials you have to assist you in some of this recognition. How can I produce it cost effectively? You borrow. You maybe use space in the school where there's not going to be rent. Or you work out arrangements with community members who actually agree that, they've got a vacant building. Will I need? Where will I get the loan? And even if they don't need a loan, I think it's important to reach agreements, really pursue, this would otherwise cost me, but I have gone through the legal process of meeting with the school they are allowing me to have space because of what kind of project I'm doing. I mean, that's important to understand, otherwise they would have had that expense. How much interest will I have to repay? Because people don't understand interest a lot. Grown adults don't understand you got to pay for the money you borrow. And so it's important to get all of that. And how much will I need to charge to make a profit? And we're going to actually do a pricing activity today that's going to help all of you better understand that, because you have to make some choices about, am I selling pieces? Am I selling the whole? or am I breaking it apart? Because sometimes you can make a whole lot more money in selling the pieces than you can the whole, because maybe your group of your target market doesn't have maybe all the money needed for the whole, but certainly when you break it down to parts, people are able and have excess that you'll be able to sell much more volume. And so there's questions like that. I'm going to do an activity specifically with that. So in the middle school curriculum, I won't mess with this too much. There's 5 chapters in a curriculum book. Now, the samples and activities I've taken for you is actually out of a book that I will hand you, and I'll give you a downloadable version so that you can pull any activities and sheets that you need. So it's a business plan, Am I an Entrepreneur, lesson 1, and we're going to walk through these lessons very quickly by the hands-on activities. And so it's problem statement, what is the investigative formulate, a question or hypothesis, data collection, gathering as much information as you can, and your students will do this simultaneously. They're probably going to know, or at least have an idea of what's going on in the community and what problems they have and where they want to focus.
Like have their phone on them, it really works.
And so I'm going to hand you all now, this is kind of your little guide. I was trained at Babson in Massachusetts, and I want to show you what mine was, but this is the one I created for all of you.
Thank you.
That kind of step by step, and it follows suit with your tabs, and it follows suit with your book, so all the information. So this is kind of the guide. If your students answer these questions all along the way, then the paper's done, and so is their presentation. Pretty much this is everything. And it's just a concise little look at it all. And so that's what it's built around is, whoops, and I've mashed my buttons unknowingly. Okay? So the business model canvas we are using has been modeled after Babson business model, and I'll kind of give you that one just so you look at the difference in how the college level is versus the high school level. Just a little bit difference in terminology is about all it is. And it skips all over. There's no, there's not a necessary path per se, 1, 2, 3, 4, so and so. And so this one was created, and so all the modules that I created in PowerPoints that are available on the KVEC site is part of this 1, 2, 3, and so you know immediately what's covered and what's in it. Okay? And so I'll go on through this, and then that's going to be our whole focus for today's training. We tried to make this model very user-friendly and applicable to your purposes in preparing your students for varying competitions. FBLA has business plan competitions. I don't know if any of you participate in that. DECA, Lieutenant Governor's Challenge, Academy for Entrepreneurship. There's lots of opportunities now that there hasn't been in the past. And I think this kind of sets you up well just to learn about entrepreneurship, and then of course when you go on to those competitions, it's at a higher level and allows you to really expand, I think, upon everything. So you can think of mine as kind of the foundation, a good foundation, I think. Where in the world was this good or service ever sold? Did it have an effect on the economy of an area? And what time period was it sold? What was the economy like? These are just some things that these areas can help you with. Science, is there a chemical, mechanical, technological, or agricultural reaction with the prototype? Can it be altered, be more efficient? English, we have all kinds of areas where you have to be able to market what you have. And so that's really where a lot of the language arts and English comes in, and being able to accurately convey your information to people and communicate well by writing scripts and jingles. Math, the market survey graphs, profit loss calculations, interest, and the list goes on and on. I always ask people, what's the difference between revenue and profits? Because a lot of people think every dime you make is a profit. And I'm like, no. There's something called cost you've got to calculate in there. And people forget that. And it's important to understand those differences. Rental agreements, you've got lots of things going on where there's calculations of costs associated with it or what you're making in general. The arts, again, in the creative side for your branding and your logos and that sort of thing. And then technology, website creation, advertising, social media now is important to everybody. And they always say, well, it's free. Yeah, but it has to work. So you got to know, 1, your target market's on there, and 2, that they're effectively, taking the information you're giving and they're going to do something about it. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's the most effective if your market is not there. So you have to figure that out. Brochures that you can post, And then partnerships, all kinds of different partnerships with other businesses. They can assist students in finding a business, willingness to mentor the student, maybe help them address a problem that they're having problem solving in the business, because they maybe aren't familiar with the process or how to make things effective, willingness to judge and give constructive feedback, teacher support. I had Kelly on there, and it's supposed to be Andrew. Andrew Castle. And then grant support, technology support, prize money to winners. We asked the students a long time ago, what do you want? Do you want a trophy? Do you want a medal? And they said money, which makes perfect sense. They're entrepreneurial minded, and they want money, and so we award money then for first, second, third place. And we've also given special awards for creativity, technology, and social entrepreneurship. What does the teacher have to do? Who's teaching what? How will you coordinate it? Maybe that you need to have a couple of other teachers assist you in certain ways, in certain aspects of the business generation. And so you might be able to get some others on board to kind of assist you in maybe going over some of the finance in a particular class that a lot of the students have, so that they can better understand the finance that's needed in the business. Creating small group learning experiences, determining if grades are being used. People have done it as classes. Teachers to do, will students actually sell? In the middle school, sometimes they don't actually sell. They have to do projections because they maybe don't have the opportunity or the time capability or the opportunity in terms of a lot of times it's bazaars or fairs that when you bring other members into the school, like community members and things like that, that's an opportunity to truly sell. But sometimes there'll be a market day. So in many cases, we do have selling today, but we don't always. And so those students don't have to. Yours may or may not. It may be about the development. It may take most of the time to get it developed. The thing that people have done is, what do you do with the profits? So some children have to pay back expenses. Maybe they got a loan from the class. There's different ways of doing it, so they may have truly had to pay somebody back. But some classes will do it as a project to where they can take a field trip. So all the profits go back into a master kitty once the costs are paid off. There may be different arrangements like that. I don't see that on a high school level as much as I see it on the middle school level. But there are different purposes. So, make sure those are kind of known ahead and your students figure those types of things out. Maybe there's a student in their class that's very sick and they want to help that family. That's happened too, where they will work to enable them to have something special or to have a procedure or something like that. I mean, it's kind of scary that happens, but it certainly does, and we know it does. Make sure you have specific guidelines about how much a parent can assist. I don't see it as much on your level, but in the middle school you have to really caution, and there has to be a note go home to explain the purpose of the project, again, to prevent the unfair resources allocation. My students, and this is middle school, my students actually judge the middle school. So I bring college students to judge the middle school. It's an electronic process, and so they use their phones, their cell phones. It feeds into a software package that I have online. And so we know within about an hour we can tally all the scores for about 130 groups, and so that's pretty good. The successes we've had over the years, 9 counties, 3 independent districts, about 2,760 students, and about 1,200 businesses were created. Now, I don't know whether those were continued, but it gives the students the capability to earn their own money. We know in these economic times that's important. Regional competition has showcased about 419 businesses, and service learning opportunities have been about 337 of my students have been able to take part in this experience over time. In 2017, we started the high school project I did. I was first involved in it last year, or 2 years ago. This was the result. So we had Knott County, Hazard, and Phelps participating. Last year, we increased the number of participants. So student learning, students gain valuable skills, they take advantage of future opportunities. Student technology leadership programs is often one place for which they go with this type of information and knowledge. Governor's Academy for Entrepreneurship, future problem solving, these are some of the opportunities that are out there. And of course, we've already spoken about Lieutenant Governor's Entrepreneurship Challenge. Value to the project to you, direct impact on students in the region who can take it out and do more with it than just a class project. They can change the economy, change local communities. Tie-ins to curriculum because it matches up with a lot of things now in a lot of areas. good way to build and enhance school-community relations by making sure you promote and people are aware of what you're doing, and then provides project-based learning focused on real-world applications. And so I think that